And today, for those of you guys joining us, we are going to do a demo in Procreate, and Maggie's gonna make me an amazing illustrator and designer in this tool because I've honestly have not spent any time in Procreate and I barely know how to use it. So Maggie's going to help me make some amazing works. And for people who don't know who you are, do you want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Like you said, I am Maggie Enterrios. I'm known as Little Patterns on the internet, a name that I sort of regret these days. But I'm a professional illustrator. I work in Procreate almost exclusively these days. So I made the transition from ink drawing to digital drawing. And I wanted to show you how to use one of my favorite apps, not just because it's great, but because I also have a workshop coming up here in Los Angeles in 2 weeks with you.
In 2 weeks, that's right. She's going to be here live in the studio, and we wanted to give you guys a preview of some of the exercises that we might be doing there. It's going to be a full day workshop. Maggie's going to give us all the tools that we need to do what we need, and even for novices like me who's okay at drawing, not really, and don't really know how to use the tool, she's going to help us look like a pro. So for those of people who are unfamiliar with your work, do you have some work that you can show them that might give them a breath of what you do?
Yeah, I do. I sorted it. It doesn't usually look this clean.
It looks really good. I was like, ooh,
yeah, so most of my work is floral and botanical in nature.
Mm-hmm.
It can vary, but for the most part, it's identified by really dense pattern illustrations. Everything is built in here. Really, the only thing I don't do is when I have to vectorize, which is, so this is a raster-based program, and I use it all the time these days.
Wow.
So these are just a few pieces I've done in the past couple months. I work a lot in black and white, but really thanks to the addition of this in my toolkit, I've been able to migrate and start working in color a little bit more, which has been really an odd transition for me. I used to work really just with micron pens, so never colored anything. I was kind of nervous to color because I don't want to like ruin the original. So this is great. Oh yeah.
Okay.
This one's like.
So am I going to be that good by the end of this? Because that's impressive.
This was this actually was the commission from Procreate itself for the update 4.3, which included the addition of the text tool. So this whole piece was designed around the lettering and the ability to add typography into your compositions without having to use any outside platforms. And this took me like 30 hours, but it was so fun. Yeah, it took a lot.
We don't have 30 hours today. We have about 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah,
so.
But you'll be a professional illustrator by the end of it.
So I can probably draw that little flower right there.
No, I think you could do more.
Okay, so that's good. So for me, just to be completely transparent and honest, I'm a total novice at this stuff. I look at this work and I'm a little intimidated because it looks beautiful. Obviously, that one you spent 30 hours, but maybe you can show us some samples of some of the stuff that we might do in the workshop and what we might be doing today, so that I could maybe feel a little bit better.
Yeah,
see, these look a little bit more tame. I can tell.
I hear that a lot, and I have a lot of hand illustrators write me and ask like, oh, is it worth it to get an iPad, or is it worth it to get Procreate? And my answer is always yes, because I do believe with keeping up with technology, it's really nice not having to scan your work. I know a lot of people who draw by hand know that that's just like a total pain. But I think there is a sort of barrier to entry. The iPad is like a big purchase to make. Yeah. But I can say with definite assurance that I wouldn't have the career I have now if I didn't have a tool like this. So it seems daunting, but there are just so many wonderful things that you can do with it, and so many ways in which it really changes and pushes your work. So I'll dive into some of the smaller samples. So all of these I did in like 20 to 40 minutes. Of course, I've been using the app for a while, so I'm sure you're gonna do great.
Well, this looks a lot more approachable.
So this is an O. Or 0, whichever you choose to think. I use the symmetry tool in Procreate. We're going to be working with that today too, because it's one of my favorites, and it's such a fun way to get that reflected Rorschach kind of look, but being able to see it live. So in Photoshop, you might do that, and then you'd like reflect to the other side and start building it. But in this, you can do it all live, which is super cool.
I'm excited.
And then I do a lot of botanical and animal illustrations, so I just did a really quick robin.
R for robin. See?
I can kind of dive into the layers panel a little. Like I really keep it quite simple. So color, line, background.
Cool.
one of the biggest things for me in the transition from hand drawing to digital drawing is I'm not really into high-tech work. Like I really am more of a manual tactile user. So all of my tools I think of as being able to reproduce by hand if I had to. So think of it like pencil layer, ink layer, and maybe background color of paper. So to me, it's more about like the actual experience of drawing and less about using like tons of special effects.
Right. That's a good way to think. And I do the same thing when I do 3D work. If I'm modeling a little set or something, it's like, how would I frame this? How would I shoot this if I had a real camera, real lights? Because it adds, that limitation helps you think about the process a little bit better. So for you here, it's like, how would I do this with real mediums if it was tactile? And I like that. That's a really good pro tip because that will help me think about how might I use this digital space? Because
it becomes a lot less daunting that way also. A lot of people see my compositions and they're like huge and kind of scary looking, but when you really break it down, it's a lot easier. So, ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm a complete novice here, and you gave me a little breakdown of what we're going to cover today. So first we're going to start with setting up a canvas, then you're going to show me how to use the text tool in here, and then we're going to do an overview of the layers, the symmetry tool, which seems like one of your favorite tools now, and how to make that more interesting by doing masking and weaving, as you call it. And we'll refine the details there. And that will be pretty much it.
Yeah, we'll see how far we can get.
We'll see how far we can get. I'm excited. So where do I start?
Well, hope you guys are ready.
Yeah, so if you guys are following at home, just open up Procreate and you could follow step by step because I'll be asking a lot of novice questions.
Perfect. So first thing we're going to do is create a canvas.
Okay.
So on our main page here, this is the gallery. In the upper right-hand corner, you can hit the plus to create either a custom-sized canvas or you can use one of the built-in ones. I like to work square when possible, which will become more evident why later on. Mostly it just makes it a lot easier to copy and paste. This is a raster-based program, like I said, so trying to set everything up so that it works for you the best. So let's start square. I set mine up to be 10 inches by 10 inches, so you'll hit Create Custom Size.
Okay.
Over here in the left-hand side, you can choose millimeters, centimeters, pixels, or inches. Inches is fine for today. Make sure your DPI is 300, or else you will get yelled at by the client. And hit Create.
All right.
No low quality here.
No low quality here.
All right, so you've got a nice blank canvas.
Fantastic.
First thing we're going to do is we're going to change the color of our background slightly so the cameras are happier with us.
Right.
So in the upper right hand corner in the color wheel, actually go to the layers panel, scratch that, and hit background color. And we're just going to kind of create a little slightly tonal background.
Okay.
Better? All right. Next thing we're going to do is add in text. So up until now, Procreate did not have a text function. If you wanted it, you had to build it in Illustrator or Procreate, import it as a PNG, and go from there. It's really easy now. A ping in the butt. Wow. So you're going to go to the toolkit over here. In the Add column, the fourth one down is Add Text.
Cool.
So today we're just going to be building like a monogram, kind of like you saw the examples from before. Decorative drop cap would be the term we're using. So you're just going to choose a letter, any letter. You can use this for capitalization if you want to do lowercase, anything. So I'm going to do an M because for obvious reasons. Next.
So we want to pick something, a letter form that's probably symmetrical looking.
Yeah, because we're using the symmetry tool today. So this will look the best for us for demo mode. Certainly don't have to do it, but I've chosen something that is symmetrical. You've chosen something that is symmetrical. This will work great. So next up, you'll notice our letters are really, really tiny. So we're going to hit Edit Style. And that's going to bring up the mega menu. The first thing I do is just kind of increase the size a little bit. So you use that first toggle. And I just make sure that it's like visible so that when I'm choosing my font, I can still see it. So you might, perfect.
I kind of know how to use
it.
I can zoom into
it's got a usable interface. In the left-hand column, you can choose your font. Procreate comes with a lot built in. I've imported some fonts, which is pretty easy to do, luckily. But for the purpose of this demo, I think I'm just gonna...
Oh, we got our papyrus in here.
Yeah, that was kind of an evil addition.
Oh, look at that. That thing is beautiful. Oh, okay. The guys are telling me to speak up and not towards the table because our mic's
the top level, like your head goes over the screen sometimes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I have a big head. Ever since I was a little kid, I had a big head. Looked like I kind of grew into it, but I'm afraid for my kids. Yeah, I know. Hats will just sit right up here.
Just on top.
All right. So papyrus, I was about to rock that, but maybe not so much.
I'd be so sad if you did that.
It's like, all the designers are gonna hate me. See, I can't. Oh,
yeah, and next column over, obviously you can adjust if you want regular, bold, condensed. So it's pretty intuitive. I really like this update. It makes my life a lot easier.
So should I pick something that's like a chunkier font typeface, or do I want something that's more delicate?
Typically, I work in something a little heavier. Just the style of my line work, it's so detailed that if I want text to even stand a chance at being visible, which obviously readability is pretty huge, I pick something like a nice slab serif, or that one's nice. What you got there? Old Gill.
Oh, Old Gill, that's right. I just don't like the width of this, but I'm looking.
You can go semi-bold on Gill, too.
Yeah, semi-bold. That's not so bad. It's just, there's something about the nuances of that space right there, like the width of that I'm not loving. And I might just go to my trusty Helvetica Neue.
I think that's a good choice.
Because that's...
People are proposing papyrus here.
Don't egg us on.
No papyrus.
You guys can do it at home and try to polish that turd.
If you show up to the workshop and you choose papyrus, we're kicking
You're going to get the face palm. Get the face palm there.
You don't get your money back. That's good.
But we're not kidding. Okay.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I'm good with this.
So I'm going to hit done. Now, if you look at our canvas, it's kind of small and in the middle of nowhere. So what you can do is go up to the layers panel. This is where you can change the font. So even if you wanted to change the size or the scale of it, you can do that elsewhere. But if you double click on your layer and hit edit text, which is about halfway through, that's how you get back into that menu to change things. If you highlight your letter, so you double tap and hit select all, that's how you can change the color around.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to choose like a light blue or green, and I'm doing that so that I can see what I'm drawing on top of the letter.
And we could always go back and adjust this later.
Yeah. So I really just use it as reference. So I like to use a really light color. If you've ever seen my time-lapse videos, you can see that I like shift colors around a lot at the beginning before I finalize. I like to have, I don't like working with transparency when I don't have to, just because you can accidentally combine a layer or something like that and be stuck with a semi-transparent. So instead I just choose like a really readable light color.
Right, so this is kind of like a guide almost.
Here, I'll go
you guys can see the contrast there?
Okay.
All right. Okay.
I can do that.
So if I chose that. Should I make my letter bigger in the screen?
Yeah, so how we're going to do that, you can do it that way. You can also use your selection tool, which is the arrow in the upper left, and make sure that magnetic is hit on. And then just with 2 fingers, you can increase it and decrease it.
So magnetics, does that make it snap? Or?
It just, it doesn't distort the letters. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Scales proportionately.
It scales proportionately.
Okay,
all right.
Fantastic. Whoa. And then do I take off the, okay. Now I'm starting to, okay, user error. You're going to see a lot of that in this. Look at this. How do I move this down? Oh, okay,
yeah, so it really is just like an iPhone, right? So double pinch. If you want to like snap it to size, you kind of quickly pinch on it and it'll snap like to actual size.
Like that.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I love this.
All right, so now we're actually going to start drawing.
Okay.
Which I'm sure everyone's waiting for. All 9 viewers.
We got 158 now.
All right, so in the layers panel, you're going to create a new line layer. So we're going to start with some line work. So you're just going to hit the plus sign that creates a new layer. Really similar to working in Photoshop or Illustrator if you're super organized,
right?
Which no one is. So to start drawing, you can choose a color that you want. You can choose a pen that you want. I don't think we're going to dive too heavily into the brush library for today because it would probably take up the entire lesson. So I'm just going to work in black. It's easiest for me, but something tonal could also be nice. We both have a little patterns brush pack, which will be at the top.
Whoa. Do people get this if they attend the workshop?
They sure do.
Ooh.
And this is big because I do not give away my brushes very often.
She was telling me earlier she's very protective of
I'm super
all of
protective.
her
It took me
stuff.
a long time to get them right. I'm going to work in ink smudge, the fourth one down, which I built to be kind of close to like a micron pen.
Okay.
My tool of choice. Over on the left-hand side of the interface is the toggle for size and opacity. I'm going to keep my opacity all the way up. I'm going to keep my size fairly large. So this one's brush size
and this one's opacity. Okay, fine.
So just a couple quick tips for you before we dive in. If you were to start drawing now, you can see that you are on a separate layer than your letter layer. You can use the quick line tool, which I think you're really going to like, and I feel like I'm going to blow your mind in 2 seconds. So if you want to maybe draw bubbles for B, let's say you draw a circle, which no one's good at, but then you hold down.
Oh, snap. Mind blown.
It perfects the circle for you.
Look at how crappy that
is. And if you hit the screen with another finger, it actually makes it a perfect circle.
Oh,
so otherwise it makes it...
I gotta do that again. So circle and then hold, so snap and correct.
So now it's an ellipse, yeah. And now hit with one finger on the screen, and it makes a perfect circle, and then you can lift up. You can do that with triangles, squares, diamonds, lines. There's lots of options. So even if I wanted to draw a square, I could hit here, tap, and it kind of perfects my...
Oh my gosh.
That's just a little tip. We might incorporate it, we might not.
You're doing some magic right now.
We're gonna start with the favorite tool that I mentioned before, which is the symmetry tool. So up in your toolbar, hit canvas, it's the second one over. Toggle on drawing guide.
Where is that? Oh, drawing guide, cool.
Now underneath edit drawing guide will pop up. And this allows you to create all kinds of different grids that your pen sort of uses as a tool. So you have 2D grid, isometric, perspective, and symmetry. So we're going to use symmetry today. You're going to want to use horizontal symmetry, which is the second one over. I'm going to use vertical, and we're going to click done. So what that does, you can experiment. Whatever you draw on one side of the symmetry line will automatically be reflected on the other.
Yo, that's tight.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I love to draw this way because let's say I want to do like a butterfly right in the middle. I can live draw and really see what the shape of the butterfly looks like. So it's pretty great.
Wow.
You can sketch really quick. Thanks. So we're going to start, I'm going to probably do something with leaves and flowers because that's what I do. But I know you maybe had some ideas.
Yeah, B for blobs. I like drawing little blobby things. And also because I was looking at the texture of this great new desk that we have here. And like there's all these
it's
like
really
little
nice.
intricate
details. This was milled expertly.
You know about woodworking?
I know about milling.
I don't know anything about this stuff.
I don't know anything about milling.
You know many things I do not.
Cool. So we're both going to create some line work. After that, we're going to use our line work as the basis to add color, and then we're going to weave the line work in and out of the letter.
Okay.
So we don't have too long.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of keep my shapes a little bit larger. I would recommend you do the same. You don't have to feel like you need to fill the entire canvas, but we'll kind of get going. So if you want to see maybe how I start, I'll kind of like I'll start, and then you can start working on yours. So the coolest thing, in my opinion, about Procreate is that similar to a piece of paper, you can actually twist the canvas, which a lot of apps you cannot. I don't actually think there is another app that you can do that in as of now. So when I'm drawing with a piece of paper, I'm kind of constantly rotating the paper, and that's so hard to do when you have to be upright. So this allows me to actually start building with curves in like a comfortable ergonomic way. So I'm just gonna start building the basis for my line work. It can be a little bit sketchier, but I'm using the rotate tool to get the feeling for what the full composition will look like. So I'm going to turn these into leaves. I work a lot in the leaf industry, but don't ask me to identify any leaves.
Including dead plants, right?
Dead plant leaves. Yeah, I go on hikes with friends a lot, and they always ask me to do flower identification, so I've become really good at making up fake flower names.
Shut up. And you're totally confident about that?
Yeah, I mean, you think of it like studying for a test in high school, like the presidents. You learn the presidents for the test, and then as soon as you take the test, you're pretty much over it, and you can fill up your brain space with other things.
That's the problem.
So that's kind of what I do with leaves and flowers.
Yeah. I see, gotcha. So you remember it in short-term memory.
I remember it for the client, and then I kind of change out of that. So I'm going to keep building some leaves over here. one of the tricks that I will just encourage you to do is it becomes a lot easier to color later on if your lines are all closed. So instead of having open paths, well, they're not really paths because it's not vector.
Right.
But instead of having an open path type style, you want to close it up kind of like a coloring book. It makes it easier. It's definitely not necessary in this app, but for what we do today, it'll be a lot nicer to be able to use like a paint bucket
and drop it in. Okay, because I think that's how I'm going to probably do a lot of my blobs. I'm thinking about this stuff, and like I want to create a lot of shapes. And you know, when I do this stuff, oh, see, so what if I have a question here? So like my drawing skills are not that good, and if I want to smooth a blobby shape like that out, is there a suggestion that you might have for me to do something like that?
So I would use the eraser tool. The eraser works on the symmetry as well. So you can go in and fix the spot that you want to fix. Otherwise, you would use the double finger tap to undo the line you just made, just to perfect it.
Okay.
I also sometimes I'll work on a sketch layer. So I'll use something that feels more like a pencil.
And then you could refine it after.
It's in there for you if you're feeling like it. It just makes it less committal, I suppose. And then you can trace over once you've got your basic form built.
We had a relevant question come up. So you mentioned that it's not vector and it's paths. Can you kind of explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'll give the overview. So vector and raster are two different types of image processing. So vector images are infinitely scalable. They're made of paths, like point A to point B, rather than pixels. So things like photographs are pixels, which is why if you are watching CSI and they have like grainy footage of the suspect and they try to enlarge it, they fake it because you cannot add more pixels. Like a picture is a picture and you can only expand it as far as possible. And paths are in apps like Illustrator, so you can infinitely make those bigger. This is a raster-based program, so it's more like Photoshop. And luckily for me, it's not a big deal. Most of my clients are fine with raster images. The way a lot of people are like, oh, well, what do we do when we need to vectorize the artwork? And I really almost never have to vectorize my artwork because if a client can print a photo, they can print raster artwork. Vector would be kind of crazy. If you look at my work, that's no easy feat. So I encourage you, if you are interested in raster versus vector, do a little research on that. It's like a huge subject matter, but you work mostly in Photoshop.
Right.
I work a lot in Illustrator when I'm doing vector imaging, so you probably work mostly in raster. So when you're working in raster, the biggest thing is just setting up your file to be the right size for whoever's producing it or whoever needs it.
Right. So it's better to overshoot a little bit too, probably, just in case you need to scale something up or down later. I really like the symmetry tool. It's pretty nifty.
Yeah. How are your blobs going over there?
I think they're all right. You can tell me how crappy they are, internet or Maggie. Like they're not great, but again, like I'm not good at drawing, so like when I draw, like I have a little bit of a shaky hand, and I'm not good with making nice broad strokes, which I see a lot of great artists do, where they use their whole hand. Like for me, I draw really tiny.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I think that's just a bad habit of mine, so I'm not good.
Well, you can also zoom in to draw tiny if you're more like I also draw small, so you can zoom in.
Is that why it's little patterns?
Little patterns. I was so literal back in the day. Question for you.
Yeah.
So I see that you're drawing, symmetrically, but your center line is off. Is that something you're interested in fixing?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I was just like, you should ask.
So over in your layers panel, on your text layer, just hit that. You're going to hit the selection tool over here, and then you can drag the B wherever you want. So you would drag your center point to the guideline. And now when you draw, it'll just feel a little better. So you could hit your drawing tool again.
Shoot.
This won't work on there.
Okay.
That should make it a little more enjoyable for you.
Much better.
Were you feeling a little
I was
nervous
feeling
over there?
a little dumb is all. Oops. Oh, I'm doing stuff now.
Some people are commenting, they're saying, OMG, this is amazing. They're into it. I think they like the style that you're going for.
So, okay, I'll ask the group. I heard about Twitch, which I'd never heard about before. And I know a lot of people play live video games on there, but I was like, ooh, maybe I should just live draw on there.
That would be cool.
Because I draw for like 7 hours a day anyway. So then I could just open it up for people to watch it. It might be like one of those therapy videos.
You ask people like, where would you want to see her do live
yeah,
stuff?
I need company sometimes.
Maybe
like
that's what people like on Twitch. You can stand out because you're the different one on the platform.
Yeah, I'm not doing video games. I'm just live drawing.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
How do I sample the color that I was working with?
So you use one finger.
Wait, let me undo this because I got some weird stroke. Okay, so one finger.
So using one finger, you just hover over an area. You can also, glide your finger around, grab the color.
Okay, mind blown. I'm getting a lot of these moments where it's just like, shoot, I have not thought about this. Oh, now look at how blobby that is. Okay.
I'm using a larger brush than usual as well. We're just trying to do everything big, cooking show style.
Yeah. Maybe this is like one of those cooking shows where they make it crappy intentionally. There's that one joke show on Netflix.
I forgot what kitchen or something.
Something like that where like they're not trying to make it pretty. It's like, oh look, I did it, and it's so crappy, like a really crappy version of what was intended.
Yeah.
And so I'm the really crappy version. Yours is the pro.
Mine's like medium right now, but it's getting there. So what I'm doing, I guess I'm doing sort of like a Victorian thing with mine.
See, I don't have any kind of real concept here. I'm just trying to fill in the space.
We're gonna do some cool stuff with that though.
Okay, cool. Any tips as you see me struggle here?
Well, I'll show you something that I'd like to do using the selection tool, which is the third one over.
This one?
So down here you have automatic and freehand. By using freehand, you can circle something in your composition and then move it. So if you want to maybe circle that blob. Yep, now you would use your arrow tool and you can move that anywhere in your composition.
Oh, because this is, it was off since we moved the axis.
So sometimes that's really nice, like if you're trying to get a large area of work done, you can use the symmetry tool, so you're getting double the illustration, then pick out pieces and sort of randomize them. So you could only have to draw once and then you just kind of move twice.
That's a very good trick that we use in motion design a lot, which is duplicate, scale, rotate. So you could animate one cool little thing, you duplicate that, you scale and rotate it and then offset it, and then you just multiply that 10 times and it looks gorgeous.
I always look at that in like battle scenes. I see if I can spot the same guy twice.
Right.
Which is like early Lion King, like whoever, the buffalo or whatever, meme. Like you see the same patterns of them like again and again.
So you can see the sprites. It's like, oh, that's a group that they animated once and populated over and over. Okay, so now I'm going to get back to my brush. I'm going to continue filling this in.
I'm going to chop this off.
By the way, people are on board with the Twitch streaming idea.
I feel like I got something there.
I think you got something there.
Sometimes I'm just sitting there drawing for so long and...
Well, let me ask you guys, why, because we used to be on Twitch for a little bit, but we didn't want to add more efforts to our plate just because we wanted to do at least one platform well, and we tried Facebook for a little bit. Is there a huge artist community on Twitch, and do you guys prefer it there versus something like YouTube or Facebook, and why? I'm curious. I'm just doing some user research right now.
Yeah, I need to look into it. One of my friend's brother-in-law is like the Tetris king in general, and then also on Twitch.
Whoa.
Yeah. I have never felt so much suspense watching anything in my life than like Tetris competition.
That's the funny thing. Video games, the esports industry, it takes the right type of game or the right type of commentator to make that exciting. Because like you'll watch some of these things, and with the right commentator, all of a sudden there's a story there. There's there's something at stake.
Like American Ninja Warrior?
Yeah.
You watch that?
Yeah,
sometimes. Oh, wow. The commentators are...
Right. Or I think one of the OG ones was the, Iron Chef.
Mm-hmm. Those are...
That, yeah.
I remember that.
And then there was the host there, who's that very eccentric Japanese guy, who appeared in freaking John Wick 3. Oh my gosh. I was like, this guy can do martial arts? I can't believe that. This guy is so multi-talented.
So I guess we probably needed like a
hype girl or something
for this live drawing.
You're right. We need Mark to do the commentary. Oh no, Matthew's drawing circles. Very poorly drawn.
Yeah, next wave of my company, I'm actually hiring. I would like a hype girl or hype boy.
Wherever you go.
You won't make much, but you'll have a lot of fun.
Okay, I'm just getting more and more used to drawing on this iPad.
Yeah, it's about comfortability. So a couple tips. Sorry, I keep moving this. A lot of people use like textured screen protectors, so that creates a more tactile surface. I feel like I've been using an iPad without it for so long that at this point I'm cool without it.
Right.
The pen grip is clutch, literal clutch. Yeah. So this helps a lot.
Mainly for grip and the sides too.
Yeah, he's probably slip sliding away over there.
Yeah, not doing so bad.
Speaking of, some people are asking, how is this experience for you, Matthew? Is it tough? How's your struggles?
I'm only struggling with my line qualities because I would like to have these little teardrop shapes taper a little bit better. Like I know there's a built-in taper. I picked one of your brushes that have a taper on there, which is nice there. But when I'm ending the loop, it still ends chunky. Is there a way to get that to taper?
There is. I mean, you might just not have the right brush for the occasion. So if I may show you the taper brush, my favorite way to use it is just to create like small raindrops. So that's kind of what it was designed for. Of course, you can use it for anything you want, but you might want to use something that is more of a consistent line weight, like a monoline. Let me double check which brush might be best for you. I would try to use bleed probably. So it's like my line's kind of tapered down at the end. So that might be better for the dewdrop shape because you can kind of extend the line a little bit easier.
Which one was that?
That is
Drop dot taper?
Scroll up, ink smudge.
Ink smudge, okay. The one that you told me to, and I tried to break the rules right away. This is the problem with a lot of people like me who think they know it all. They'll jump in and like, I know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna pick a different brush. I'll pick my own thing.
I mean, if you
I'm
also
gonna be creative.
If you also go into, well, mine is like so different now because I've added so many brushes over the years. But if you go into your brush library, it'll be under the inking category. The gel pen brush is really nice. You might be very happy with that one. So if you want to have pointed edges, you might just choose to do it in a smaller size.
User error right there. That does not look good.
Yeah, so like the more, you can also, they're all pressure affected. So if I want to do like a thicker line, I push harder and end in a thinner line.
That's counterintuitive for me a little bit.
That brush specifically then might be counterintuitive for you. So, yeah, I probably just misled you. So you can see on the brush preview what the ends look like. So I guess I should have told you to use one that's got more of a taper at the end.
So if I look at something like this, because I do like the fatness of the center. So if I were to draw another one. Whoa! It's friggin' huge. Okay, let's go really small. Let's see what happens. Can you say this? Thanks for watching me struggle. This is the worst.
I think this is gonna be okay.
And then you want to liking this.
You want to lighten the touch at the end.
So
if you think about it, when we used our like actual material example, so like lighter touch means that it ends lighter. Right. So.
See, I was expecting the program to do that all for me. It's like just know what I'm thinking, my intention, and then it comes through on the pen here.
It kind of does once you are familiar with it. Like just like using any materials or new interface, like once you've got the way you work down pat, you can kind of start building in some.
Right. Okay, that's much better.
Someone suggested, this is from Michael Stancato, if you use the studio pen, that would smooth things out. Is that
studio pen's awesome.
A viable solution?
Yeah.
Studio pen. Where is that one? Is that an inking?
Studio pen's an inking. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
So he's watching.
There are just like so many brushes.
There's so many options here, and I don't want to make it too complicated. Obviously, we're doing a short demo here, but okay, thank you. This is much. This is more my lane. This is
studio pen.
That is the jam right there.
That's nice. That's really nice.
Now I can feel. That feels a lot better.
And don't forget, you can use your quick line tool as well if you want to do like a perfect oval.
Yeah, I don't mind. Like everything else is so janky already.
I'm
going to embrace that.
I'll let you handle this one.
I'm going to pretend like this is like a very rustic looking texture here, and my intention was to keep things very imperfect, as if a novice were drawing this. And here we are.
As if a novice were drawing.
Wait a minute, what are you trying to say?
That's okay.
I was trying.
We were sitting here for an hour with the iPads, and he didn't even touch it.
Yeah.
That didn't even like put.
I didn't even practice. You see, that's how poorly I've done in here. I wanted to really show you guys that I'm not perfect, even though you guys all think I am. Even though I play it on TV, I'm actually I'm very not good at some things, and we've discovered a thing here.
That's pretty different than me because I'm usually good at everything.
Oh. Woodworking. Oh my gosh, I bet you can build a table.
I have built it.
And she actually built the table. Yeah.
I built this table. They know.
Oh my gosh. What the heck?
Full-time illustrator, part-time table expert.
Someone said, new show for the channel, Learning with Matt.
Yeah. Watch this new.
I would watch that as a cooking show, actually. That sounds fun.
See, I enjoy cooking. Me and Ben here at the office, we really like cooking. We always swap cooking recipes or stories or techniques. And but we've never cooked with each other. Like, we've never gone over each other's place and like tried to cook for each other. So it's interesting. We're the ones that cook at home. I really look at that. It's not so bad. That's pretty.
This is looking great. I'm so relieved we got some full coverage. That way we can really move on.
Yeah. Okay.
This is nice. All right. So we both have a line work layer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Moving on. So in the layers panel, we now have 2 layers. One of them is the text layer and one of them is the line art layer.
Mm-hmm.
We want to do a little coloring.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You're into it?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to create a new layer for color, tap, and then I'm going to move it below the line layer because I don't want to cover my lines. So you hold down on it just a little. Mm-hmm.
See, I feel like such a noob, like trying to do stuff. Because I see when you work, there's an observation, you're using your fingers whenever you're doing the gestures.
Yeah.
And then when you're drawing, that's the only time you can use the pen.
Yeah.
I feel like a stiff, like really weird novice.
You just gotta.
Yeah. I can't do any tricks like that.
I can't do that either.
I'm gonna shatter this pen.
So one of the best features, in my personal opinion, in Procreate is that it has a lot of different selection tools, and there are multiple ways to do anything. But one of the most streamlined ways to do everything is by setting your line layer as a reference layer, which basically means that no matter what you're doing, Procreate is always using your line layer to guide it. And I'll show you what that means. So if I have I'll toggle into the layers panel and just tap the word reference. If I'm on any other layer, so I can move to a different layer now, then I can choose a color and maybe like drop it into an area of the design. So I don't have to like manually color. But if I didn't have it set as a reference layer and I tried to do that, I would get a full screen flood.
Gotcha.
So it basically uses it, I think Procreate actually uses the term respect. So like as long as you've got something set as a reference layer, then the program respects that as the guide layer. So what we're going to do is we always set our line work as the reference layer.
So this one's the reference layer.
So you just double tap on it, reference is the third one from the bottom.
Right.
So now we go back to our color layer. If you want to be good, you can name your layers.
That file hygiene is something that So how do I name it? Just click and hold?
You tap once.
Tap once.
There, I guess you tap twice. So tap on the word itself.
Tap.
Someone help. No.
Michael, save us. How do we do this?
Michael!
How do I rename this?
I feel like I rename layers all the time.
Oh, here. So
wait, how do you tap?
It was a drop down. So if you go here, drop down, then you can. No, just kidding. Never mind.
Trust me, I do this all the time. This is just one of those things in live television.
It's all good. Oh, rename. Right at the top of the list.
There also is like a shortcut way.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
But they just updated it, right?
Directly on it. I just did it because look, I had the word color. But I don't know.
It's all right.
All right.
So I was saying, file hygiene is very important to me. Only because if I would work with teams and groups of people, so we pass files around all the time. And if you get somebody's file and there's 20 untitled layers in there, it's maddening. So if you work in a professional environment, especially with a team, it's really important to name stuff, keep things clean, as if your mom had to use this and pick this up after.
I'm really into naming layers. Photoshop is great because they have the search function in Photoshop. Yes. Illustrator, though, naming layers is like it's fun though. I love it.
Okay.
Nested layers. So there are a couple ways to color.
number one would be to pull from this color wheel and drag it into the shape that you want to add it. Sometimes that fill thing happens, but what you see is color threshold appears at the top, and it basically allows you to control how much or how little you fill. So Procreate is really designed around this threshold idea. So in a lot of different tools on here, there will be like a toggle that allows you to choose what you want to do.
So for me, like this shape up here, if I wanted to fill that, there's an obvious gap. So if I go here and then drop that.
And then you might just want to slide down. It may not be closed enough, but yeah.
That's a great tool.
So you could do that. There's a second way that I really, really like, and it's one of the lesser known tools in Procreate. I'm going to choose like a nice mossy green color. So the tool is called Recolor. It is in the tool panel. It is over here. So it's the last column in the effects panel.
Right here?
Or at the end of the column. Recolor. So Recolor, don't get scared. When you tap on it, what you have is a cursor right in the middle of your screen. You can press on that cursor and guide it around the image until you find an area that you want to start to fill. So if I use the same leaf that I just was working on, I would tap into that leaf, and now I can actually continue to color the rest of the design just by tapping on different areas that I want to fill. And another thing you can do is we can keep our perspective on, or our symmetry on. So let's say I want to color both sides at once, which we probably want to do for the sake of time.
Yes.
So going back into the layers panel, on your color layer, tap once and hit drawing assist. So drawing assist was the one that we went to in the top of the interface. We clicked on drawing assist and we clicked on the horizontal or vertical perspective. Right. So now that you've got that on, you can go back into Recolor, slide your ruler around, and now if you look over or up here, you can see that both sides fill at the same time.
Oh, that is awesome.
I'm going to move my color layer above my lettering. So you can use that to just kind of, I think, more quickly tap around. And you can see down here that the threshold is another option for you.
Right.
So you can use that to sort of monitor what you're coloring in. It's just a
why
single
is it doing
tap.
this?
So you just tap once.
Tap once?
Yeah, so you don't need to hold down unless you want to change the threshold.
My.
This is all a little technical, but
this is
so
good.
now you could use the threshold to control how much. And if it really isn't a closed shape, you're probably out of luck.
That's my fault.
And that's when you could go in and manually color something, which works pretty much the same way that you would expect it to work. So you use your brush tool and you can color in a shape, just like.
How do I undo that? Okay.
I knew you'd get it. So I'm going to go around. I'm just going to kind of loosely color everything while you're working away. And you can also, you don't have to click out of Recolor, but you can go to your color panel and choose like a new shade of red, and then just keep tapping away. So you can just change color, tap, and that way you can quickly color something without having to continuously toggle off and on.
Right. That's awesome. Oh, that was the trouble child right there. So I'm going to just avoid that one.
Yeah.
This is super cool.
Yeah, I feel like I'm throwing a lot at you, but
I'm trying to keep up. I'm really trying.
I just wanted to make sure we got in like all my favorite tools in one short time.
Yeah.
And this is a big one. It's pretty hidden in the interface, and I feel like I didn't know it existed until fairly recently, so I would assume that a lot of people don't.
Where do you go to learn like the new stuff for Procreate, or like are there resources that you look at when you're trying to learn more about this tool?
So Procreate directly, they do tutorials on Tuesdays.
Oh,
and I think maybe Thursdays as well, but they have a YouTube channel for more in-depth tutorials, and then they also do them in their Instagram stories. Georgie is the social media manager. She's awesome.
Yeah, I talked to her before.
Yeah, she's great, and she leads their social media, so she's always doing really cool stuff on there. And then in addition to that, in the App Store, you can find the Procreate Handbook, which I just recommend.
Is that free or is that paid?
It's free.
Oh, awesome.
So I think you have to have the app downloaded, but I mean, you probably want to have the app downloaded.
Right, otherwise, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So I used that before this. I just wanted to make sure that I was brushing up and providing all the right information, so I downloaded it and read it on a recent plane flight, just scrolling through all the pages that I knew I kind of knew and trying to find some new tricks.
Okay, so I'm here now. What if I want to go back and select that color again? Do I have to go off of?
Yeah, and then you would use your finger to.
Right. So if I turn off. Oh wait.
Yeah, you don't actually even need to do anything else other than use your finger.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So I go
you
back.
just hold down.
Oh. Go down.
And then you can slide around to find the color.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
You're a good instructor, you see? It's a preview of the workshop we'll be doing. That's how good she is. She knows everything.
Almost everything.
Except for how to rename a layer.
I bet it'll work right now. Oh well, I'm just going to use the long way. Everybody's like, there's not another way. Do you ever feel like people are just screaming at the screen? Yeah. I feel like that sometimes.
That's probably Michael right now. He's like, you idiots, why are you using it that way? Guys.
We're trying our best, Michael.
Don't judge us, man.
He said, thanks for explaining recolor.
Recolor's cool, right?
Coolest
It
thing.
saves so much time. Like, I used to manually color everything.
Uh-huh.
Saves so much time.
This is very cool.
Don't tell my clients. Kidding.
I mean, you could just say, we
They
could
don't pay
say
hourly
this. You're right, it doesn't matter. They just want the output anyway, right? They just.
So over here, I don't know if people can see it, but I just tried to fill in this really thin area. And what I'm using is the flood tool at the bottom, so it's just like threshold, and it allows me to fill a tighter space. It's kind of the same as using the magic wand in Photoshop and controlling just exactly how much. I forget the term for it, but when you go to the top, you
I
put
think
in
it's
the
also
percentage.
called threshold.
Threshold.
I think it's also called threshold, yeah. It's the same concept.
Same concept,
Yeah.
different tool. So in this case, I did not want full yellow, so I just lowered the threshold, and now I can adjust a little more. On the fly, everybody's gonna love this tool. Everybody's gonna be so happy today. Go home and use recolor. Oh, I'm assuming everybody's watching at work also, because it's the middle of the day.
Right.
And that's what I used to do when I worked in an office.
You would learn during
Just
the day.
watch tutorials.
I think there's a lot of people who watch our channel who do that.
That's how I learned milling.
Why did you want to learn milling?
I've never learned milling.
Oh, well, how do you know about it?
I knew this guy
Uh-huh.
in Chicago who worked at a milling company, and he made just beautiful tables.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I learned how to talk about it, learn the concept of milling.
Right.
And someday I would like to have a really long, large table, like with a rustic edge.
Yeah, the live edge.
Like a big meal.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
Okay, so what
I'm done with my coloring over here.
well, you're the freaking pro, and I am still fudging around with this. What do people think about how amazing Maggie's is and how terrible mine is?
Well,
I disagree. I think this is looking
people
rad.
do like to see you learn, and then people are commenting. So Tevin Morris says, Maggie, I wish you were an art teacher. Well, Tevin, she is teaching a workshop here, so that might be of interest if you're in town.
Yeah, if you're in LA, you can come join us.
She does teach.
Yeah, I taught at a one summer after college or during college. I taught at like a art camp for 6 to 10-year-olds.
Oh, really?
And I
How
made
was
the
that?
children cry because they got so frustrated that our exercises
Are
were
you
so
serious?
difficult.
Are
Yeah,
you
I felt
serious?
so bad. I was trying to show my work to like the 8-year-olds to inspire them, and they were all staring at me like,
you crushed their souls.
"Are you kidding? Like we're 8."
I can't do
Felt
that.
really bad, and then I had to sit down and explain like, I've been doing this for years, but I started when I was your age, so don't give up. I felt like I just waited a whole group of young artists.
Let me ask you, do you keep your old portfolios from when you were their age?
My mom does.
Right.
Every summer, just like everyone's mom, she's like, I'm like, Mom, what are you gonna do this summer? And she's like, well, I'm planning on tackling the garage.
The reason why I ask is I went back to my parents' place recently and I dug up all my portfolios, and I have my portfolios from high school, getting into Art Institute, getting into Art Center, graduating Art Center, and then my portfolio now. Or like my freelance portfolio and then my portfolio now. So I have like over 2 decades worth where I could see my very crappy work from the beginning, my very, very crappy design work.
But do you ever see like the thread of consistency? Like
Yes.
it's mind blowing. Sometimes I look at old work
Yes.
that maybe I also thought was garbage at the time, and maybe it kind of looks like garbage now, but I'm like, oh, I kind of see what you were getting at, or I see the beginnings of this.
Right.
It's like seeing your personal style develop.
Yeah. And I didn't even start drawing flowers until, I mean, relatively recently in my career, mostly because I am a commercial artist. So I don't really do fine art. I do things that'll be sellable.
Right.
So clients love flowers. Everybody loves flowers. Flowers
Right.
look good on packaging. Flowers look good on textiles. So the addition of florals into my portfolio was pretty new. And really the whole early portfolio was abstract line work. And so when I look at that, sometimes I'm almost inspired by the old work because it was so much more expressive and like less restrained and less perfect. So sometimes I try to even like incorporate that back into my current work.
I'm struggling a little bit.
So
I'm trying to just fill that layer, but so I'm going to my fill layer.
Yeah.
That's the assisted layer, and then I'm going to recolor.
And then you need to so maybe zoom out, and you'll see where the now I would just undo, and then go back into recolor. And you'll see the little guide in the center, so use that to slide with your pen. Instead of clicking into the spot you want, like slide over to it.
Oh, slide over.
So just tap down on the screen.
like that, and then
Yeah.
move that over.
And then
because flood is all the way down to the bottom.
scoot it all the way down again.
Yeah.
So maybe your shape is just
It's just
closed. So we can close it.
yeah.
If you return to your line layer, you can.
See, I accidentally started filling on my line layer, so I'm kind of screwed, right?
And you filled on your line layer?
I thought I knew what I was doing. Apparently not.
Wow.
I know. I'm a
I
failure.
thought you guys had me set up with someone who could learn.
I told you to begin with. I am
Instead, I
a
have
novice.
just honorary student,
Oh, I'm a hack.
unwilling to listen. Well, I'm gonna add
Just
some
go
dots.
okay.
I'm gonna add some dots in while you're working.
Okay. I won't take too long. I'm not gonna
No,
make this
you're
perfect.
fine.
I will
Just
make
take
this
your
as
time.
good as I can. For
Just
the
gonna
sake
add some.
of our audience.
I'm gonna add some dots in over here, and I'm gonna do taper.
Okay.
Oh,
So Maggie, during the workshop, is there going to be other opportunities to do types of art outside of floral?
oh yeah.
I'm just wondering for
I mean,
the
yeah,
non-floral people.
yeah, just like Matthew.
Yeah. Whoa. Hey. What do you?
No, you can do abstract. You can do whatever you want. Like we're not focusing on floral. We
Uh-huh.
don't even have to focus on letters. So one thing I would advise, like if you've got something that you have hand drawn or something in your sketchbook that you're looking to amp up or turn into digital art, you can bring that along and we can take a photo of it, import it into Procreate, and we can use that kind of like a tracing tool, and we'll basically learn how to use these tools in conjunction with your sketchbook or your idea, and we can build upon it so that you can have some digital artwork at the end and you'll be able to go home and finish it. You probably won't do it that day. But it should be fun. I'm gonna also provide some additional documents, so while he's working, I'll show you what I built for him today. So I just built like a little file of some parts of my old illustrations that you can copy and paste into a composition. So I'll have some florals, I'll have some animals, I'll have some patterns, and you can just take those, copy and paste, and you can use those to build off of in the workshop. So you don't even necessarily need to come with any ideas.
That's fantastic.
All levels welcome.
I love that. Even a noob like me.
Yeah,
Look at that, Mom. You could save this and put this on the fridge.
she's gonna be so
She's
proud.
gonna put it in the background on her cell phone.
Cool.
Okay, this is kind of decent enough. Like it got kind of wonky there, but I don't care. This is good enough. Like I feel pretty proud that I could make something like this.
That's because we moved it when we were doing symmetry. But if you want to erase that, or you don't,
Should I?
I would.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. You're saying that it sucks.
I just think
This is what the kids felt. I feel it now too.
Start crying. Just don't cry.
for the sake, while he's finishing,
Oh, that was fine.
I'm gonna do a little shading over here. I think we're gonna stick with maybe like the more graphic flood style for ears, but I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of basic shading over here. So this layer that I've called color, we're gonna call that shade by renaming it, which I've now learned to do. And I'm also gonna set that to drawing assist, just so everything stays symmetrical. So
Like I said about reference layer, now we're going to be shading on top of the color layer. So it's going to go color, shade, line. So I want to use the color layer as the reference layer this time. So I basically only want to be using the color. Like I don't want to shade on top of my line work. It's not important. So I'm going to change the color layer to both so now it's assisted and reference. So it is symmetrical and it's also the reference. So by clicking on this twice and hitting select, now everything's grayed out. I'm not sure you can see it because of the cameras, but much like in Photoshop, when there's an empty layer, you get that like slight pattern overlay. And you can see that the only area I can draw in now when I'm up on my shading layer is only on top of the color.
Whoa.
Right? So even if I tried to draw like in the middle, it wouldn't show up. So you can use this for shading. I like to use an airbrush. I have one here. I'm going to pick a color that's slightly darker than the green that I was using for the fill by doing this. And then, so all I have selected is the color, and I'm one layer up, and you can use it to create the shading of a leaf. So I'll do that. Maybe even go even darker just so we can see it. And I'm just going to add some shading at like the base of the leaves pretty quickly. You can see it just kind of gives it a little bit of life, a little more excitement.
Love that. I'm not going to go there because I think we'll slow down the entire stream.
Yeah, I figured we could kind of...
I'll let you take over from here.
We can each do our own thing. We're having a great time. I'm also going to add in some highlights because that's fun. So I'm going to keep everything selected the way it was, and I think I'm going to throw in some light highlights. Basically all I did there was just click around, grabbed a different brush, nothing too complicated. And now I'm just going to hit each part that I want to see a beam of light cascading upon with my highlight brush, just here and there. Again, I'm being pretty loose about it. Just kind of giving it a little extra added texture. So, how's it going over there? Y'all colored?
I'm all colored.
Do you have a question?
No, I think what I realize now, it's like there's the symmetry right here at the middle of the bee is kind of bugging me, like how symmetrical it is. So I kind of want to draw maybe a couple of elements that just break that line. So
sure. So on your line layer, just make sure you don't have symmetry on.
Right.
So you'll want to turn drawing assist off.
Great.
Yep.
Cool.
And then you can use color drop or use your finger to pick up the black color.
Yeah, and then now I could just draw some stuff. Look, see, I know I learned some stuff today.
So while you're doing that,
you're gonna do even more
add in another
stuff.
layer.
It's like I'm still doing the basic thing.
I'm gonna add in another layer of detailing.
Dang it.
So just on the larger leaves, I'm gonna add some extra line work. Kind of give it a little bit of life. So I'm just going through with a really thin brush and adding some texture. Nothing too crazy. Might switch brushes. So I like when I draw leaves to have the beginning and end of my leaves a little bit darker. And I'll show you why in one moment. So basically allows a little bit of depth. What I didn't do was put symmetry on, so I'm going to turn that on right now. So now I can go through and just add a little bit of line work. And that kind of makes it feel like the leaves are on top of and in front of each other. And so typically when I do my compositions, I do almost the entire thing in black and white before coloring it. And that's just a process thing. It's almost like an assembly line. So it's easier for me to finish like all the black work before I even think about color. Sometimes clients want to see a little color preview and I have to deviate from it a bit. But this is, I would say this is pretty akin to the typical style I work in, just on a little bit smaller scale.
Is it because by eliminating that variable, it helps you move a little bit faster?
I think so. I think so.
Is it also a values thing? Because I know a lot of work really is based off of how much contrast and how are you playing with the values before you even think about color.
Yeah, so coming from a black and white illustration background,
I really do use the most rudimentary style of contrast. So I want to make sure I have areas of black and areas of white so that my final composition has like the full gamut of color across it.
Right.
I use mostly muted tones as well. So I want to make sure that the line work is really setting the stage to make those muted colors richer.
Right, right.
So I can have maybe, you know, dark line work or shading that once it is on top of a muted color creates the depth, because muted colors together kind of can feel sort of drab.
Right. Yeah, that was a little tip from the color video that Greg had made. But he was doing it more as a post way to check if you have enough contrast between your colors. But the way you're suggesting, which I've seen other people, a lot of like visual development artists, concept artists, they work this way, or even illustrators, they'll just work black and white at first because it helps them just think about values.
Yeah.
It's very important to think about values before color.
I'll pop over, while you're working on your details, I'll just really quickly pop over to another composition. I'm trying to think of one that would be a good example. I think it's the skull. Cool. So the skull I did in color, and the goal from the beginning was to do it in color. But after I'd finished it in color, I wanted to actually explore it in black and white again. So I went in and found my original drawing, which was here. And there really aren't any areas of black. Like for the most part, I would say that this whole illustration is sort of on the same plane.
Right.
There's a little bit of contrast. Obviously, there's some of these darker details, but it's to me, lacking depth. So what I went in and did, even after I'd worked on the color version, was I added depth by adding in solid areas of black. And to me, I felt like had I not intended to, like I started with color, and so it's almost like I didn't think about doing this. But once I went in and actually explored the drawing and added in areas of black fill, I thought like, wow, I could have really amped up my color drawing as well. So I had to go back in time and make sure that I had that contrast.
So you added additional contrast to the color version after the fact.
So that's how that. Yeah, that was the beginning, which you can see is like super flat.
Can you zoom in a little bit on that? Because those are some little patterns there.
Oh, and so what you're seeing here is, so that's that brush, the taper brush. So I just used it over and over, but I color blocked it. So none of my work is this vibrant. That's just not my style.
Right.
But when I draw it, I make sure that I'm using vibrant colors so I can really see what I'm doing. Because if I'm only using black and white, or if I'm only using a really muted palette, I can't really get the feeling of density. So when I pulled it into the final illustration, it really was just meant to be like a light texture.
I did not even see that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
If this was printed as a big billboard or someplace where people can walk by it, these would be beautiful details that would pop out and just like, wow. Or if it's wrapped on the side of a building.
I could tattoo of it.
That would take a long time. It'd have to be like a full back piece.
10 sessions at least.
I put it up online, and I only had like one person comment and say, I think they wrote it like 30 weeks after I put it up, and I got a comment on this old drawing, and the person wrote, "Whoa, I didn't even notice that pattern you put on the skull." And I was like, "Thank you for noticing."
I'm sure
It took
99% of people didn't even see that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see that at first. I didn't realize.
That's the fun of it. So,
Wow, it's cool. I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
This is super fun to do. Now I have a question, because we're talking about masking.
yes.
So for me, my intention, I was building this with the intent that a lot of these blobs are going to just be masked within the bee.
Yep.
And then maybe I might add some decorative elements to break it after the fact.
So here's how I do that. We're gonna do it sort of. Maybe we'll work from the inside out. So what I mean by that is I'm gonna go in, and I'm going to condense all of my layers, both the line and the color. I normally would make an extra copy just to make sure it wasn't messed up, but I'm just, for the sake of this, I'm just going to combine them all.
Let's
so
keep it simple.
Gotta use your pinchers.
Okay. The pinchers.
So basically grabbing the top layer and the bottom layer that you want to combine, you pinch them together.
Whoa, so if I go like that.
Yep. So now
it's amazing.
So if you have like a really large layer group, big pinch. Now
For us, I'm also going to create a second version
Uh-huh.
of this layer just in case we need it later. So you're going to swipe to the left and hit duplicate.
I almost hit delete.
And then choose one layer and turn it off just so it's
So that's
not
our
there.
our backup. Cool.
So at this point, we could go in and, oops, you have to be on your layer that's on. We could go in and just kind of start erasing stuff, which would look like that. But
so like I have this
instead-
translucent eraser thing. Is there a way to adjust the eraser?
yeah, so go to painting, maybe choose,
Something that's solid, maybe.
or go to inking
Or
actually.
inking. Okay.
Yeah, and it's something
Studio
more
pen?
solid, which should be fine.
Cool.
So I'm gonna turn off layer assist.
Yes.
I want it to not feel as symmetrical anymore.
Right.
And so what I'm gonna do in order to make it feel woven is I'm gonna select my M color, or my M shape. So I'm just gonna toggle the layer and hit select. That makes it so that all we're working with is the layer shape.
What was that one more time?
So just tap once more
Uh-huh.
and hit select.
Select.
So now you've kind of, you've grabbed your letter, but by tapping on the color layer, we'll call it the art layer, now we're working on the art layer, but keeping in mind the letter layer. And what I mean by that is if I were to hit erase, I can go in and only the part that's on top of the letter itself is the part that's being erased.
Right. And
Which-
now, what if I want to do the inverse?
So you would go to your letter layer, hit select, and this pops up and you'd hit invert.
So is that right?
You might have to hit it again. Yeah, that's right.
That's correct. Now it's showing the selection inside. It's a little hard
Yeah.
to see for our.
So now you go to your art layer. It may actually, it may need to be the opposite. We'll see.
I start erasing.
Yeah,
Oh, this is correct.
is that what you wanted?
Yes, this
Okay.
is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go through on this side and just start erasing some layers that overlap the M, but not all of them. So that way they're kind of going in and out of the letter. Both of these I want to be floating behind. Oh, that made a huge difference. This to me is like the most fun part. I just feel like it's a little more.
I am having
I don't know,
so much fun
satisfying.
with this. This is
It's fun, right?
incredibly satisfying. Now I can
Just
start
mask
to see.
all day.
Yeah, things are getting a little bit more asymmetrical.
Yep. It's the fun part.
I like that.
I think I'm going to put this guy out.
Any thoughts or comments from our audience at home as they watch us do this stuff? I'm starting to feel like a pro over here.
I think you're going to be really happy with it in the end. Do you think you're going to work in Procreate a little bit?
Yeah, actually, after learning these tools, I'm gonna have to watch this video. Luckily, we have this recorded. Then I could kind of study and think about how I might use this, because the symmetry tool, like the way to draw all this stuff, and then just kind of like the intuitive nature of using a pen versus like a mouse or even a Wacom tablet, like this just feels really nice to work with.
Yeah. So while you're erasing, I'm going to go through and I'm just going to add like a few little details in here and there.
Well, you just gotta make yours more advanced.
Well, I just want to make sure that we got a lot of interesting stuff happening at all times.
No, I'm teasing. Please do that. But I could tell that you were the student in class. Like you look what everybody else is doing, and you'll just do yours a little bit better.
Have you ever been? You probably have not. You've probably never been cursed with this. But have you ever had to go into one of those like painting wine nights?
No.
Oh, it's like
Where you
a
go with a group of
bachelorette party
people
thing.
and-
Oh, those kill me.
Why do they
It's like,
come-
hey everybody, we're all painting the same corgi,
Oh.
and I'm sitting there going, I do not want to paint a corgi.
Yeah.
I want to paint my own thing.
Do
I
you
will
end
take
up-
the wine, but
do
I
you-
don't want to paint the corgi.
Do you end up painting your own thing?
Yeah, I'm not painting the corgi. Maybe I should though, like a apocalyptic corgi scene. So I'm using one of my brushes. It's a tapered dot brush. I really love it. The dots start small, and with more pressure, they become larger.
So how do I unselect this thing now? If I want to start adding details.
You would just toggle the select
Oh.
button off.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
This
you.
is looking cool.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's looking amazing.
So Maggie, people are asking, do you solely use your iPad for this? For these type of drawings, or do you use a Wacom with other applications?
Nope, I don't use Wacom. I did when I used to work as a graphic designer in-house, and I would use it there. That was like before the days of iPad. But to me, I have a pretty big issue with hand-eye coordination. I want to see what I'm drawing, and I know that since the iPad came out, it's like the Cintiq that you can actually see what you're drawing. But at that point, I was already a devoted iPad user, so I never experimented with that. One of my favorite other apps, though, is AstroPad. So if you're familiar with that, you can actually tether, so you would still need an iPad, but you could tether from your iPad to your computer, either a hard wire or a Wi-Fi, I think, tether. And you can basically project the screen of Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever is in your computer onto your iPad and work in it directly with your stylus. I love that. So the only problem is that you can't rotate like you can in Procreate, but let's say I'm vectorizing some artwork, so maybe I'll create the artwork in Procreate, but then I want to vectorize it separately. I prefer to draw by doing that. I don't do live trace or anything like that, which no one can ever convince me to do live trace. It's just like too messy for me. So instead I would basically save my artwork as a layer, throw it into Illustrator, make it slightly transparent, and then use the pen tool or the brush tool to draw my vector on top of it. But Procreate it's just so near and dear to my heart. It really got me into digital drawing, so I'm a big fan. So I'm just adding some like more decorative details. No one has ever accused me of being a minimalist. So I'm just gonna keep going. You are too, looks like.
Yeah, I'm just
like that.
experimenting and seeing if I could add another layer of something that's kind of moving the other direction. Do you have a suggestion? Like, because I look again, I was inspired by the shapes in this wood table, and I'm looking how there's all these kind of like little intricate things.
So you could also try using this dot brush if you did it in like white on a higher up layer, or underneath, maybe one layer on top, one layer below.
So if I go here and then go to brushes, go back, go to little patterns, dot paper.
Yeah, I really like this brush, and then you would want to probably.
Oh my gosh!
So the harder you press, also the larger the dots will become.
So it's pressure sensitive.
Pressure sensitive.
Oh, this is so cool! I'm gonna turn off my crappy layer, what I was trying to do before.
Yeah, so you can create brushes as well. I could do a whole demo on that.
Wow.
You can really do anything. But one of my favorite brushes to create, I'll jump back over into another drawing. I'm trying to think of the last one I did it with. Yes. So I worked on this kind of fake logo for a club for people that can't keep their plants alive like me. And I really wanted to create some interesting density that just wasn't a solid fill. So down here, you can see that I created a repeating layer brush. So that was pretty intense for me because I usually do it manually. And I was like, this would be so much better as a brush. So we'll get into that sometime.
I love this. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna make it white just like you suggested. I tried to break the rules again and I didn't listen. But let me show you guys. Can you see that? So as I hold this down, the little balls get a little bit bigger, and then if I go light, you get these very delicate ones. This is amazing to me.
What I really love too is when I do work in vector, you can build similar brushes in Illustrator. So for things like this one, like kind of a cascading dot shape, like I'll just build a similar brush in Illustrator so that I can use it in the same way when I want to recreate it in vector. It's a lot of work, but it's doable. I just like that the apps can work together when needed.
I'm just mesmerized by this tool, this brush, and just, ooh, this is so cool.
It's a good one, right? So how are you feeling about your colors in general?
They're okay. It's a little muddy now that I look at it post, like after I've done everything. It feels a little bit muddy. I think something needs to pop, and I don't know if it's the yellow that needs to pop or this red here.
Cool.
One or the other. I feel like I need a little bit more contrast there.
So let's play around with color a little bit. So something I think also I just kind of want to see on yours is if you toggle off your letter layer, I would love to see what that looked like.
almost
That's
legible.
Pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Definitely legible.
Yeah? I think it
Yeah.
needs more little details right there just to complete
Just
that.
to create a smoother line.
But
And
that's
I think that's
cool
pretty cool.
idea. Yeah, because then I could do actually another, like maybe more of like a wood grain texture or something back there.
I think you have enough fill on it
Mhm.
to create the basis.
That's
Anyway,
super
yeah.
cool.
But feel free to toggle it back on if you like it more. But I'll show you how to use some of the color editing functions. I use them a lot. The color palette I start with is like never the color palette I end with. And a lot of people ask me how I create my palettes, and the answer is I mess with them until they look good. This is not a color palette I would normally work in. But I created it this way just so I can kind of show you how I can play with it. So with my color, this is like the color artwork layer toggled on. You go to the adjustments panel, and there are some color options at the bottom of the adjustments panel. One that I really like to use is color balance. So it to me it's kind of similar to like the color toggles in Camera Raw. So you can choose between highlights, midtones, and shadows. So if you wanted to mess with your yellows, it would be highlights. And you can use the sliders to affect just the highlights. So this will end up affecting just the yellows in my drawing. So by toggling, I can add warmth.
Oh, that's so cool. Yours is so much better than mine.
I had shading.
See, mine's less dynamic.
But you can, I love working like this because it takes it from just like a green on green to something that's like really dynamic, interesting color. So especially working with shade brushes, you can get tints that you were working with, and you can just sort of use this tool to like amp them up and make them into color schemes that you probably wouldn't have initially thought of. So I'm going to do this. And so I've kind of turned mine into like sunset colors.
I'm kind of like going against the.
That doesn't sound like you.
No? What do I? Give me some suggestions here. I'm just trying to slide some stuff. I'm looking at the line work now, which I started with that kind of like a dark brown.
I mean, I like the idea of keeping the darkest points of it tonal with the background of the bee. And then using the highlights and the white to add your secondary color. And it is feeling a little Christmassy. So I might, I mean, it's cool, the bee of Christmas, but...
that was not the concept at all.
But I would probably go to midtones. Just, I have a feeling that's what the red is going to be on.
Yeah, it is.
And I would use that.
How do I make this pop? Help me. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
I'm just checking it out.
See, no, you're judging.
No, I'm really
You're
not.
judging.
This is what we're gonna do. So let's get it to a point that is less blood-like, and
Bees for blood.
There we go. That was my concept all along.
Bees for blood. We're gonna go to hue, saturation, and brightness, and this will take everything on the layer and uniform change it. So I think this is going to be a good option for making it pop, because you can also use the saturation feature and kind of do like a whole batch edit. I mean, it does take some of the beautiful tonality that you had out of it. So maybe it's like there's some middle area.
Cool.
Something like that.
That looks more vibrant. That's
Yeah.
more my jam.
Maybe I'll make mine more vibrant.
Maybe
I'm
I'll turn up my
inspired.
little pearls or something.
So I'm going to amp up the vibrancy on mine. This is so vibrant. I'm not gonna make it. I couldn't commit. And then you can change the background color of the letter if you want to as well. The cool thing about this is that the text layer also, if you were to send it into Photoshop, it would be a live text layer. So we haven't rasterized it fully.
So that part stays vector.
Yeah, and we've clipped a lot of the illustration to it, so you probably wouldn't want to change it into a different letter at this point because we've clipped so much of it specifically to the bee.
Right.
But what it means is that you can just manipulate it a little bit easier, and if you really did need to, you could go back to that layer color or layer where we didn't erase anything, and in Photoshop or something like that, you could change the letter and then remask the artwork to a different letter. So you could throw I could change this to a H, and then
cool.
kind of start from scratch and relayer all of the leaves onto the H. So then I would have already two matching letters,
Right.
which would be kind of fun.
So you could just repurpose a lot of the same elements.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna change my letter color. I actually might mess around a little bit with background color.
Someone in the comments said, make it pop, and then little emoji.
Some people. All right. Yeah, this is fun.
I think I'm going
All right.
to...
So I think we're close to wrapping up. Are there any questions that you guys have while we still have Maggie here that she might answer? Something that's relevant to, I guess, what we've done today.
Go ahead and drop your questions in the chat, guys, and we'll address them.
Woo!
Wow,
What do you think?
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
The shading helped a lot.
The shading's pretty ideal.
I think that's something that I gotta go back. Not on this. I will do a fresh one where now I know the tools a little bit better. I'll probably do another one and then think about how I might use those things, because that shading, it was so subtle, but once you started playing with the colors, man, that made it pop. Oh my gosh! What did you just do right
I
now?
thought you'd like that. So
Please tell me.
I took the artwork layer
Mm-hmm.
that we didn't destruct in any way. Basically, remember I had made it pink.
Yes.
So I pulled the, so this is what I had.
Mm-hmm.
The artwork layer that we didn't destruct, I turned it on. I pulled it on top of my layer I had been working on. I flipped it vertically.
Shoot.
And then I moved it behind the letter. So
Gosh
effectively
dang.
doubling the amount of illustration work that I had on the M.
Right. And clients don't need to know that. I told you this is a good trick, is the duplicate, scale, rotate, offset.
Duplicate, scale, rotate.
And offset. You have to offset it. Otherwise, I mean, if you don't want the
have to
full mirror.
offset,
Right.
yeah.
This is the easiest way to make something look very intricate.
Yep, so that's for us.
Wow, that's M for Matthew. She picked M for Matthew. Can you guys believe that?
Yeah.
Someone is asking, what is your inspiration behind your color choices, Maggie? Or where do you get?
Nature, science, no, not at all actually. Usually it's just, I saturate it so that it's like really colorful and beautiful, and then I whip out all the saturation so that it's a little bit muted. I feel like my line work is the star of any composition, and I don't really want color to compete with it. It's not me. So color to me comes second. It's just a way of accenting the line work. So I like to keep a muted palette, but it's fun to color with bright colors. I just pull them back at the end.
Right.
And ultimately work with colors that flatter each other. So classic color wheel spectrum applies. You can work with like colors and create a little I forget the term for it, mutual, I think it's called like color vibration. So you can work with colors that don't necessarily match, like an orange and a pink, but when they're together, they kind of like vibrate. Really cool.
There's a term
I know,
for
I
that.
can't think of okay.
Maybe Michael knows.
Can someone think of it?
Yeah, what is that? Is it simultaneous contrast?
Simultaneous contrast.
See, I didn't waste that $100,000 education at Art Center for nothing. I remembered one
Yeah,
thing.
or you can use colors on the opposite side of the spectrum. So
Right, that's complementary there.
Complementary.
Right.
Yep, that's a pretty solid starting point. I also, when I do shading and highlights, I like to use tonal colors. So rather than using a white for highlight and a black for shadow, maybe I'll use like a yellow for highlight and a dark green for shadow. And then when I toggle around, there's also blend modes in this program, so I can toggle around blend modes and try to just create an interesting color set from there. Cool. And sometimes I just look up color schemes first. One of my favorite resources for that is called Design Seeds. They take photographs and pull out the color palettes, and I could just scroll through them forever. I've been using that since college to come up with like cool color schemes.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way when this is not representative of my colors here, but when I do colors, the same thing. Like I'll look for something that I love, like if it's a still frame from a film or something, it's just like, I'll just literally sample those colors and start applying it and then tweak it for the appropriateness for the use of what I'm doing. It's just, I see something, if I have that nice response, like, oh, I love the color there, I'll just straight up copy it.
Totally.
And then slightly tweak it.
Yeah, color's fair game. And if you look at what I do, usually in a pretty similar vein. I thought the other day, I'm gonna start using yellow. And that's gonna be big for me because
Life-changing.
I really don't. So maybe you'll see some yellowy stuff.
All
If
right.
I can figure out how to make it nice and mute.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there more questions?
Yeah, we got one from Michael again.
Michael!
Any best practices for curves?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. I'll use this as a sample. So let me use this brush. So we use the quick line feature, which was the one that created perfect circles or triangles or squares. But you can also use it to create curves. So I'm going to use a bigger brush just so it's a little more visible. But you can create a curve, and once you release, you'll see at the top the term edit shape. And you can use that to change your curve.
Why did you show me that to begin with?
There are a lot of features we didn't have forever.
So you're
So
saying I'm slow.
I really like no.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so I like that because obviously you can create nicer curves that way. Another one is in your brush settings, you can toggle on streamline. So streamline basically takes the intent of your line work and smooths it out. So with streamline off, I draw a curve like that. With streamline on, I wonder if you can pick up on this. Do you see how it kind of adjusts itself as I
Yes.
draw? So that can help with curves. I do a lot of like swirls. So streamline's really helpful because I can make a spiral with a few gestures, but it actually stays relatively round.
Yeah, that is crazy.
So
I wish you had showed me this at the beginning when I was.
I
Look at,
know.
look at all my janky blobs in there.
But we
now.
need the janky blobs.
Right. You guys need to see.
maybe we'll have like a printout at the workshop. It's like, here are tools you can ask about.
Oh, that's
Creating a
great.
perfect circle, creating a curve.
Right, like a FAQ
No.
almost. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's pretty much it. Like, I think you dropped tons and tons of knowledge on us today. My mind is blown because prior to you being here, I've only used this program for about an hour total. Now I added an additional hour, and look how much better I am. Hopefully, I will grow more with the workshop because I'm very excited for that. I'm excited to learn some more.
And
Let's
the
talk-
workshop will be longer than this also.
Yeah,
So
let's talk about the details of the workshop.
Yeah.
So it's going to be here hosted at Blind. You're pretty much going to provide everything in terms of the tools. You just need to come with your own iPad with the latest version of Procreate.
Yeah, and even if you've got a friend and both of you want to come, maybe you only have one iPad between you. You can share it. Like we worked a little bit together today. I honestly don't think that would be a barrier. You can take turns. I think it's totally fine. So don't feel like you need to rush out and buy an iPad if you happen to have a creative friend that wants to share with you.
Right.
But I will provide you with some cool brushes. You'll get every brush that you saw me use today. I'll provide you with some sample files so you can dig into them, see how they were built. I'll provide, like if you show up and you just are like, I kind of just want to color, I can show you how to color. I can provide some files and you can learn how to add shading. Like it's a small group. We are capping the number of people that can come so that we can actually work together and address concerns on the fly. But with that being said, it's pretty flexible. Don't worry, I've done workshops in the past. It went well every time.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you need to have something really prescriptive in mind. You can come in with just an open heart and a desire to play around for the afternoon.
Can we bring our wine and corgis?
I would be fine with that. I don't know do you have that kind of insurance, like the liability coverage in the building for dogs and wine?
I don't think so. I'm just sorry.
Probably not.
Open up a box of worms.
We did have a question with regards to the iPad. So is it necessary to have an iPad Pro?
We might need to double check on that. To my knowledge, iPad Pro, the Procreate is only able to work on iPad Pro. I do believe that the most recent version of the iPad that came out, the non-Pro version, but it has to be like just the last one that came out. But we have to double check on
The
that.
one that's Apple Pencil compatible.
Yeah, if
anything
it's
that-
Apple Pencil compatible.
There you go. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I have another iPad here, and this is like a really old iPad, but it still is Procreate compatible. So I would just check. If you can download Procreate on your iPad, then you're
Right.
good to go.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I think also for those of you, because this is a big purchase for some of you guys who don't have a friend or who don't want to buy it yet, You could also, I believe, rent these. So you might look at some computer rental shops or even some photography like B&H or Sammy's or something like that, because I believe they'll rent out gear. So if you just Yelp it or Google it, I'm pretty sure you could rent something just for a day for the sake of the workshop.
Yeah, I think that would be valuable too, because then you can figure out if you actually want to work on an iPad or if you can see yourself working on one before you take the plunge.
Is there any questions about the workshop that we might answer now?
Oh, we're going to have lunch there.
Yeah, there will be food. No
Yeah.
specific questions. People are just wishing they could come, but they don't live nearby. So
Fly out.
Southwest Airlines.
Bam. It'll work. People have flown out for our workshops before, and they've gotten a lot of value. I think you can.
I'm flying out for I'm driving in for the workshop.
That's
But
right.
I'm not even supposed to be here.
That's right.
And here I am.
And she's doing this
I was
for
in
us.
Utah yesterday.
Wowza.
Yeah, it snowed.
Cool.
yeah, so we're good for the questions.
All right. So cool. So if you guys are interested in taking her live workshop here at the Futur, check out the link in the description below. The seats are limited, so make sure you pick yours up. If you guys have any questions about what you saw today or anything about the workshop, just leave us a comment. And if you guys enjoyed this, for the many of you that are streaming now, give this a thumbs up. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because it really helps us out. And if you like Maggie and you want to see more of her, look her up at Little Patterns.
I'm all over the internet.
Yeah, you can find her
me.
and her intricate patterns
Yeah, and
everywhere.
I'll do my best to check the comments on your YouTube channel, and I'll try to write in and answer any questions that you might have.
Awesome. Cool. All right, well, we will see you guys next time. Have a good
See you
weekend.
maybe in a couple weeks.
Yeah.